Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we are continuing from the first portion of this JavaScript API course. So this is the second part of that video, and so far we have partially achieved our goal, which is we can now search for a song and we should get some results back. So I'm going to search for this fire squad, which I already tampered with before starting this tutorial. Now I'm going to search and I should get some value back. Let me just remove all these errors here. So we are getting some results back. Now, if we go back to the code, here we have the code that we were working with the last time, and we realized that on hits, we're actually trying to print out an array that has 4 elements. It has 4 objects. Now we want to print out the names of those people. So how are we going to do that? Since this is an array, we will have to loop through the array. So we can use the for each method. Now, if you've not used array methods before, then well, basically we're just looping. I'm gonna show you how to do this in both ways using the for each method and the simple for loop that you're used to. So I'm just going to just gonna open this. So this is an array, right? And I will store this in a variable called um, hits. Just say hits r is equal to this. So this is an array, and we can say we're gonna start with the traditional for loop, and we'll say I is equal to 0 while, sorry guys, it's dark in here, while I is less than hits r dot length, since this is an array and we're trying to loop over that array, and we will increment I every time, right? So now we're looking through this array and we're checking if, sorry, we're not going to check anything. We're just going to console log all the names that exist within each object. So we're going to console log hits r at index I dot name. Right, now let's go back there and check if we're going to get something back. I'm going to search fire squad again, and I'm going to run this, and we get 4 undefined. Why is that? I'll go back to the code and I'll check what I did wrong. So I'm going to delete this and I will post, I'm going to redo this just to kind of see what kind of data we're going to get back. I'm going to search for this and I get 4 arrays. Yeah, so I get 4 arrays. So I'm still looping through this and I'm printing that array 4 times. What if I say hits at index I? Then I should be getting, each object in the array. So I'm going to search fire squad. Yeah, now I'm getting the individual thing. But my issue was I immediately search for the artist. Remember, I'm supposed to grab all the properties that exist within this. Now this kind of object is nested, right? So there's a lot of other properties that you need to call first before you can get to your actual object that has the name attribute, right? The name property, sorry. So now if I say hits r dot artist, or it's artist, it's not artists, it's artist, and I will search this again. Okay, let me just remove this and do my search again, and I just get this, which is now weird but not at the same time. Let me say artist dot name, and now it has become, oh, okay, I see what I did wrong. I didn't reload the page, so it's still running the old code. So you have to be careful about that. I'll say fire squad So now I've removed that name. I've searched hits are at indexi dot artist. Okay, let's just run the file squad again. So I'm going to redo my search and wait for it to get the data back. And now we're properly getting that object. Isn't that awesome? Now I think we have access to each of these properties. Let's just test that out. So artist dot name. I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna paste it again. We'll run the search. Now we should be getting each artist. Great. So now we're getting the data the way we want to, right? So now we're actually ready to do our rendering because that's what we want. We just want to print out the names of these artists. Now, if you're working with this API wherever you are, you can do whatever you want with this data. Just search around, see how you can get access to each of those or each of the properties inside each object and render whatever data you want to render or do whatever you want with the data if you can. So what we're going to do, we're going to print out this. Instead of printing it out on the console, we're just going to print it out here, right? Okay, so before we do that, I'm going to change this into a different type of array because I like working with the newer syntax of JavaScript. So we'll say hits are dot for each. We'll use the for each loop. And okay, let's remove this array. So hits are, we're looping through the array and we're getting each element. And that element, we're just going to print that dot artist dot name. It's gonna do the exact same thing. So I'm gonna console log that. Console.log, and I'm gonna comment this code out just in case something happens. I'm gonna comment out this code. Going back to the code, I'll cut this and I'm going to, sorry, my goodness, being clumsy today. I'm gonna paste this here and I'm gonna search and we should get the exact same data back, right? So it works pretty much the same way. So I'm gonna delete this. If you want to stick with the old way, that's okay, but I highly recommend that you get used to working with the array methods that already exist. So now what are we going to do? We are going to print out those names somewhere here, right? So first of all, let's quickly style this to look a bit better. I'm going to go to my style.css and okay, let's first go to the HTML and just look at this form tag here. We have a search, we have a button. What I'm going to do is wrap this whole thing around a div. I'm going to wrap this around a div called form. You know, right? So we'll go back there and we're going to say dot form. And in here, I'm just going to give it a background color of gray. Now, I like to hover here and choose a different color. If you're using a different editor, you might not get this type of feature. Well, that's okay. You can just copy this color, or you can just go to Google and search for a certain color palette or something. I don't know. The color doesn't really matter. Make sure that it looks good. You can style it however you want. This is just my preference. Right. So when I refresh this, I'm not gonna get anything here for some reason. Background color class div. Okay, I'm not getting anything back. I wonder why. Okay, let me just open up my dev tools. Go back to elements. I'll go to body. And here I should be getting, or is it because that color is too close to white? No, it's not. It should be visible. Yeah. Nothing is changing here, and for obvious reasons, we haven't included our link CSS. So we have to link our CSS with our HTML, right? So now everything is going to change accordingly. Also, now this footer is aligned the way it's supposed to. I'm going to close this temporarily, and I'm going to set the width of this form to fit content, right? So this will, it's self-explanatory. It's just going to fit this whole content like that. And what I'm going to do is set its margin to the mid. I'm just going to set the whole thing in the middle. I'm just going to put it in the middle. So essentially, you can't say text align center when you try to center a div, right? So what I'm going to do is set I'm going to set the right and left margin to auto. That's essentially what I'm doing here. And I'm setting the up and bottom margin to the same, I mean to 0, unless I really need to change it. But so far I don't need to change it, so I'm gonna set that to 0. What I'm gonna do, just add a break rule here. Really, I'm not going to complicate things because this is not a front-end tutorial after all. And I think I'm going to remove this search for music. It's kind of redundant. We already have a placeholder. So I'm just going to remove that. Go back here. Now I'm going to add some padding to this. I'll make it 20 pixels. Right. So already looking a little bit better, but it still looks really ugly. What I'm going to do is for the button, I'm just going to say form button. Since we don't have a lot of items here, I don't want to complicate things. So form button. So if we had more buttons here, this wouldn't be okay because it wouldn't know which button to locate. But yeah, form button, and in the button, I'm just gonna add a little margin bottom to kind of give it space, or margin top actually. That's what I want. Margin top to 10 pixels. Right. Go back there, and now we get something that looks a little bit better. Another thing I want to do is add a sort of H2 here, and I'm going to say search for music, because this, I think this one will look a little bit better because every web page should have a heading anyway, right? And I will align it here, style text align to the center. Sorry about that. So I've aligned this to the center. Now it's going to stay at the center. And what I'm going to do is change the overall font style. So I'm going to go back to the top, and I'm going to say for every element in here. So that's for everything. It's going to change. It's going to style everything according to what I write here. So what I'm going to do is there, I'm going to set the font family. Sorry about that. I'm really clumsy today. Font family, I'm going to set that to sans serif. I'm not going to complicate things with different types of fonts. I just want to focus on this one. Now that that's done, next thing I want to do is just give this thing a little bit of padding. This input. So we're going to go back here. We're going to say form input. We're going to give that a padding of 10 pixels. Hopefully that looks good. Okay, it's trying. And I'm going to give the button a padding as well. Let's say 5 pixels. See how that pans out. Okay. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to give it more padding. Let's give it 10 pixels. How about that? Now it looks ugly. Let me just give it 8. Better. Now, I think I should give my form a little more padding. We'll say 30 pixels. Right. And I also want to make it a bit longer. Now, my div, this surrounding area right here, that is going to be relative to how long my inside elements are, because we are fitting the content, right? So that is controlled by how big my elements are. That's why I like that fit content um, value. So what I'm going to do is set the width of this input to be larger. So by default, I don't know how big it is by default, so we're going to test that out. The width of this, let's try 300 pixels. Right, right. Yeah, I already like it already. And now what I'm gonna do is, yeah, I think I'm almost done. It's just I need to change the background of that thing to be something a little more. Yeah. Now, one last thing. One, no, actually not the last thing. I want to change the button color. Actually, the background color. Let's change it to blue, but not this type of blue. Let's give it a lighter blue. Nah, yeah, somewhere along these lines would be better. Yeah, something like this. This is what I want. Good. And then I want the text, color of the text to be white. Really, guys, you don't need to complicate yourself. I don't understand people who write um, hash FFF, or RGB 255, comma 255, comma 255. Just write white. Why you need to complicate things? So let's go back there, and now we have a blue button. Now the border looks really ugly, as you may have noticed. So I'm gonna set the border to none. Great. Now I think I'm almost done. We're gonna set the border radius to about 2 pixels. Nah, 2 pixels is too small. Let's try 3 pixels or 4 pixels. How about that? Great. This looks better already. Yeah, I think that's it. Unless I want to give this one a border radius. Let's try 4 pixels. Great. Now we're ready to go. So we have our little search bar here. And now we want, when we search for something, we want those names to be displayed here. We could really display anything we want, but we're going to focus on the name, right? I'm thinking of displaying cards rather. So if you don't know what cards are, let me just go to Google and search for web page cards so you can know what I'm talking about. So it's something like this, but ours won't have an image because we don't get the image data there. We just get the names and everything. So it's something like this. You've ever been on any website and you get these little blocks here? That's what I was thinking of. That's how I was thinking of rendering that data. So each person would have, so you'd see each name here, and maybe all the other data that comes along in that JSON. So if we go back to our app.js and remove the name, because I want to see the other types of data that we get. Maybe we can display all of that in card format. So I'm going to search for fire squad. We'll search and go back to our console. Also, another thing I don't like this. Like, you don't know that this is a button because the cursor isn't changing. So let's go back here and say button cursor pointer. Right. So when we refresh this, now it's pointing to that, showing us that this is actually a button, which I think is awesome. Right. So when we click on it, yeah, so we're not getting any data here. Anyway, fire squad will search for fire squad and we're getting some data back. Now I want to see what kind of data is here. Adam, what is this? Maybe you guys know what this is. I don't know what is Adam ID. Is it something like that? because I'm pretty sure that last two is ID, because we're getting something that looks kind of unique here. We can maybe paste that if we want. We can paste the avatar if you want. If we want, actually, I'm just gonna grab this whole string here, and I'm gonna search that. Yeah, I'm gonna search for that. Maybe that's the image. Maybe we can also render that image, which is awesome. Okay, we're not getting anything back. Or maybe it's this avatar thing. Let's just try it. Let's try to search for this. We're not able to because we do not have an authentication key, obviously. So, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just going to try it out. I'm just gonna try it out. Right. Okay. So, okay. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna say artist dot avatar. Eh, Price what? But I can already see there should be an error here, or we should get something very weird. Yeah, we get the actual image of. Oh my goodness, this is awesome, right? So we can actually create our card. We can actually create the card that we want. So let's go back here. We can. This is awesome. Anyway, I'm going to refresh this. Here I am thinking that we don't get the image back, so we're not going to be able to do those cards the way we want to. But yeah, we can go back here and go to index.html, and we're gonna create a card section. Just gonna call this a card section, and in here we're gonna have a couple of cards. No. Firstly, this is what I'm gonna do, right? Inside this card, we're gonna have an image, right? Or we can say dot img, and then we're gonna have an image in there, and we're gonna say dot description, and we're gonna have the description of that particular artist in here, right? So I'm gonna say, sorry, that's not gonna store the image. That's gonna store an h3, and this is where the person's name would go, right? This is where, and then down here we would have maybe some other data. What other data do we get back here? So we get the person's image, we get the avatar. We're not worried about the ID. The name is already verified that we're gonna link it there. We're gonna add the web URL for that particular music. So what we should be having here is an A tag, don't you think? Yeah, we should be having an A tag, and we should say song, right? Or link to the song, or link to the song. Great, great. Now we're not going to hard code all of that data here. We're not going to be able to do something like that. So we're gonna generate all that. Excuse me. We're gonna generate all that data in kind of a dynamic way. I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do that. So far, I'm just gonna add something that can show us how the cards can be aligned, so that we can know that this is how we're gonna have all that data aligned, right? So we're gonna start with the height. We're gonna say 200 pixels, and then we're gonna write the width. We're gonna say 200 pixels. We're gonna go back to the test API, and here, okay, let me write the h3 as well. We can say jcode. We'll hard code all of that data for now, right? So we get that. I will now duplicate that many times, and here I'm gonna name a different artist. Say, I'm just gonna make up something. The I don't know. Okay, let me just say Linkin Park. And here I'm going to say Rage Against the Machines. Great. Now, I want you to notice what's going on here. We're getting, as you can see, now we have our cards here. It's already looking good and we haven't even styled it yet, which is awesome. Let me close this for a while. I'm just going to style this a little to look a little bit better. And for the links, for the hrefs, I'm just going to add the same image over again. Now, we don't have images here, right? I'm just going to create a new folder. And in this folder, I'm going to add images. This is just for testing purposes. These images are for purely for testing purposes. I'm not going to use them for this tutorial. Like, we're not going to use them. So I'm just going to download an image, jQuery image, and we're going to display jQuery 3 times. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Where am I going to save it? I'm going to save it in, we'll go to websites. We're going to go to test API, tutorial fetch API. We're going to go to images. We're going to paste that there. Go back here, close that. And I'm going to change the name of this to something else. I'm just going to change it to code.png. And I'm going to copy the name of this thing. Now I'll add this here. And I'll go to the other one and I'm going to do the same thing. And I'll go to the other one and I'm going to do the same thing. We'll go back here and we're going to run this. And so far, we're not going to see anything because we are not actually, the jQuery image is not in the current folder. So we need to navigate to the folder where it's in. So it's in images / code.jpg, right? Images / code. As you can see, it's already showing me. And now I'm not getting the image back. Why is that? Images / code dot images. Should I say what? Oh, oh my goodness! I'm actually writing this down in my href, which is like that's bad, guys. That is bad. I've never seen anyone make a mistake like that. But yeah, don't be making mistakes like that, guys. So I'm gonna remove this. Go to source, and I'll save. Yeah, go back there, and I'll hit the play button. Now we're getting jQuery 3 times. Now the next thing we're gonna need to do is go here, and we're gonna style this a little bit. We're gonna say dot cards, and in cards we're gonna set the display. I don't like to use flex. Well, I like to use flex, but I like to use grid more. So we can say display grid, and we're gonna set the grid template columns. Grid, sorry, grid template columns to, I don't know, we're gonna set it to auto, auto, auto. And we don't get anything here. Why is that? Let's go back there. Oh, it's actually card section. It's not cards. It's card section. Now we should be getting those aligned equally. But that's not always going to be the case. It's going to depend on the content that is in each element. Sometimes, if this content is more, it's going to disrupt this whole thing. So, if you don't want that to happen, you can specifically set this to 33.33% if you want. And you're going to do the same for the other columns. So, this is the first column, this is the second column, this is the third column. So, they're all going to have equal width. If you want it to be more, if you want to have like 4 items, you can 4 columns, you could say 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, right? It's entirely up to you. Now, when you have more elements in here, for example, I add another card, it's going to start over here, then here, right? Great. So that hopefully that wasn't difficult to understand. I'm just gonna give this some margin top of 50 pixels. How about that? Right. So I want to give it like a space here. Let's give it more. Great. So this is the type of data we want to get back. We want to get the person's image. We want to get the name of the artist, and we want to get the link to that individual artist based on that JSON that we received back. Right. Uh, let's do the same for the margin bottom. Margin bottom. Uh, let's give it 100 pixel margin. Right. So now we are ready to go. Great. We'll style this to look a bit better next time when we're done rendering that data here. Right. So we kind of have the skeleton type of thing. So the next thing we're gonna have to do is, instead of doing this, okay, let me write the whole code here first, then we're gonna split it up into a different method because we don't want to have a chunk of code inside our fetch API. It's not a good way to code, in my opinion. Don't don't swear at me for that. But we know that element.artist will return, or element or data, okay, data.artist.hits will return an array, and we're going to loop through that array, and elements or element dot elements dot artist, right? Okay, let me go back to the date. Yeah, it's element dot artist is going to return the JSON. It's going to return like four objects. Sorry, it's going to return four objects, and each object contains all the data that we need, right? Now what I want to do is grab. I'm just going to remove this, and I'm going to grab. I'm going to create an ID. I like to grab things by ID when it comes to JavaScript. So I'm going to give this an ID of card section. We're going to remove this one as well, but I just want to use it for, like, you know. So I'm going to copy this. Now we'll go back to our app.js. We're going to say card container is equal to document dot get element by ID. And in here, I'm going to pass in card section, right? Card section, like that. Now in here, we're going to render some cards, right? We're going to render some cards, and this is how we're going to do it. Let me just, okay. We're going to say card container dot inner HTML, and we're going to use backticks because I really like backticks. They make life easier. And here I'm just going to paste all this code just like that. So this is an individual card, right? Okay, let me just indent this. Yeah, so I'm sure this isn't difficult to understand. This is an individual card rendered multiple times, right? It's the same JCO card. So I'm gonna go back there, and I'm gonna say, fire squad. Now that is gonna be rendered again, right? But why is it being rendered once? Let's go back to the code. So essentially here we're getting object, 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 but here we're getting that JCO image back only once. Why is that? Because we're not rendering, we're getting it once because when we click on that button, it's fetching the data, and when the data comes back, it's only rendering that JCO image once. Let me just remove this card that already exists here before I start to confuse everyone. And here I'm just gonna say cards to be displayed. And I'll comment out this. So this is just a comment. Right. So we actually need to grab this whole thing, cut it, put it inside this. Right? So now we're one step closer to this. We'll say fire squad. We'll hit search. And we should get that 4 times, but we're getting the same thing. We're not getting different people, right? Yeah, that's because we've hard coded it. We've hard coded J Cole. We're getting J Cole 4 times. Now, when we have this, it's easier for us to just say $, and now what we're gonna do is say element dot artist dot name. So we can just get the person's name, right? We'll go back there and we'll search Fire Squad. We'll hit search and we'll wait for that. And it's now going to bring back J. Cole, Fire Squad, Dry Branch, Fire Squad, right? So these are actual the group names are probably Fire Squad, and this person's name is actually Dry Branch Fire Squad, but I've never heard of this person. But J. Cole, this is J. Cole here, right? Now the links do not navigate anywhere. We haven't set it to navigate somewhere. So it's just going to refresh. That's all it's going to do, right? Now the link, we can just do that. Hopefully you're paying attention. What are they doing? We can say element.artist. Oh my goodness. We can say element.artist. Okay, let's search for Fire Squad again. I forgot that property name. So it's element.artist.web_URL. So we want to get this property right here. We'll go back there and we're going to paste the name of that property. And we also want to change the image while we're at it, right? What am I doing? Right? We don't want to paste something that belongs to our website, right? Actually, I want to copy this whole thing because I'm tired of writing that $. I'm working a bit slow today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Artist dot its avatar. Yeah, right. So we should be getting different images here. We'll search for Fire Squad again. Let's wait for that. And boom, we're getting different images. Isn't that awesome? Now, we're almost done here. Now, this is linking to a different song, right? Somewhere else. Now, I don't have an Apple Music account, so I won't be able. Maybe I won't be able to listen to that. I don't know. But as you can see, it takes us where we want to go, right? So now that we got that out the way, I'll go back here. I'll refresh. Let's try to search for something else. Apparently, I'll hit search, and we're getting some data back, which is awesome. I'll close this, and as you can see, we have different types of apparentlys, and each of them is linking to their individual song. But yeah, again, we have one problem. It's leaving our website, and we don't want that. We want to open a separate tab for it to go to that particular link, right? So on our image, we can say, sorry, not on the image. We can on the href, we can say target is equal to underscore bank, so that it can go to a different. It can open a separate tab for it to go to that particular link, right? So now we're gonna refresh this, and we're gonna search for apparently. We're going to search, and we're going to wait for that data to come. And when we click on apparently, it's going to open a different tab and go to that particular link, right? So now there is that song. Good. So whenever we want to go back to our web page, we can just click on that link. Now we want to style this to look a little bit better. So how are we going to do that? Or what do we actually want to do? What we want to do is we want to put this sort of thing in the middle. Like, it's actually sitting on the left right now. We want it to stay in the middle. So let's just look at how this whole thing is aligned. Uh, Let me go to my CSS. I'm going to go to card. Sorry, just going to go to card section, and I'll say dot card. We'll check the background color. We're going to change it to a different color just to kind of see what kind of space it's taking. Oh my goodness. Let me just hard code that for now. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm not going to hard code anything. I'm just going to search for something every time. And as you can see, it's taking up only one part. If you want, you can start it to take up like, the whole thing. How are you going to do that? It's entirely up to you and how you decide to do things. But what I want to do is set the width of the card if I can. Hopefully I can, to fit the content. See how that's going to pan out. So we're going to say apparently, and that changes absolutely, or it changes something. Now what I'm going to do is use my little magic trick, margin, and I'm not going to write that whole code again because I've already written it here. So I'm just going to copy this and I'll paste it here. Now I'm going to right click and I'll say apparently, I'll search, and now it's aligned in the middle. Isn't that awesome? Now I'm going to change that color to something, or I'm going to revert back to the default color, which is white, and we'll search for a different song now. Let's search for Chum, and we're getting some results back, right? Right. Yeah. So that is it, guys. That is it. You can consider this tutorial done, but I would like to style this to look a little bit better. I would like to style it to look a little bit better. Yeah, I'm going to style it. So what I'm going to do is focus on the card here. Start with the card section. Let's set the gap. I don't like to set the gap actually. Actually, what I want to do is set the margin bottom. Hopefully this part is the bottom. Let's set it to 100 pixels. And we're going to refresh and we'll search for Chum. We'll wait for that result to come back. And yeah, it did exactly what I wanted it to do. We're going to change the background color to be the same thing as our form. Oops. We'll paste that. We'll go back there. We're going to search for Chum again. We'll hit search. And yeah, now we're getting somewhere. Now, the next thing we're going to need to do is add a padding. So probably that's the issue here. So I'm just going to remove that pixel and do my search again. And now we're getting a nice little box shadow here. This looks awesome, doesn't it? Now, this looks a little inconsistent. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just me, but you style this thing however you want to. I'm just here to show you how to work with APIs, okay? So whatever you search for, it's going to appear here. I think we're done here. I'm going to stop here, and I'm just going to test this out a little bit. I'm going to search for what other song can I search for? I'm going to search for Your Heart. Right? You're not getting any data back. Oh, it's appending to the data that already exists. That's another thing that we need to change. It's appending to that data that already exists. That's not good. That's not good. It's not good. So what are we gonna do here? We should um, grab that, and before we do that, we should actually set this inner HTML to nothing, right? We should set it to, actually, should we set it here? Yeah, we should render the data, then set it to nothing. So now when we click the button again, it's going to set it to nothing and then render the data again. So it's going to show us new data. Right, so I'm going to search for apparently. First, I'm going to search for apparently. Let's wait for that. And we're getting some data. Now I'm going to search for something else. I'm going to search for rich spirit. Now it should override the data that already exists here and show us new data, right? Not actually override, it should delete that data and add new data. Now we can search for something else, your heart. And now what it's going to do is show us new data, right? Good. Great. Now, another thing that we can do, which is the last thing that we're going to do here, is we don't want to, you can do whatever you want. You can do more validation here. You can check if it's empty, you want to display something else. It's up to you. Essentially, when you search for something, like when I search for charm, some users won't know that this is loading. So they're going to think that something is wrong here or something like that, or they might not be patient enough to wait for it. Say you're getting a huge chunk of data. So you want to tell them that the data is being gathered, right? So we're going to go back here, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that, right? But let's think about it. So we have all this chunk of code, right? And this happens before the data gets taken from wherever it's taken, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an h2 tag here, and I'm gonna say loading. So I'm not gonna add any animations or something like that. You can just look that up on YouTube if you want. If you want to add like sort of that loading animated like rotating thing, if you want to, you can look it up. But I'm not gonna focus on that. I'm gonna give this an ID of loading, and I'm gonna copy the ID. We'll grab it on our app. Now, if you know of an easier way to do this, then you can do it. But this is like what's coming to mind right now. Document.get element by ID. We can paste the ID there. And what I'm gonna do is when you click on this button, we want that ID to appear, right? We only want that ID that this H2 to appear when we click on that. So what I'm gonna do is set the, now I could say loading here, but I don't like to do that. I like to use this selector here when I'm dealing with IDs, especially when I'm dealing with IDs. And what I'm gonna do is hide this display hidden or display none, whatever. Not hidden. I'm gonna say none. We don't want it to be there. And I want to change the display. When I click on this button, we want that display to be, we're gonna grab that loading dot value. Am I right? Oh no, it's actually not loading dot value. We want it to display. So we're gonna say inner.html. No, not inner.html. We're gonna say style dot display. is equal to, because we want to change the display type to block, which is like the default, right? The default is block. And once we have found whatever we're looking for, we're changing it back to none. So we're going to grab this whole thing here. We're going to change it to none, right? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to refresh and I'll search for charm. We're going to click on search and we see this loading thing here. And when we get our data, it disappears. Simple as that. And I could grab this loading thing or whatever and set the text alignment to the center because we want that to, or we can just, instead of saying loading, we can say uh, getting data. Or loading, it doesn't matter. Now we're going to search for chum, and whatever data we get, we're going to see this getting data, and then we get that data. Simple as that. You can style it to look however you want. So I think I'm going to stop here. And should I forget something very important, then I will post a part 3 of this video where I will explain whatever it is that I have forgotten. But I doubt that I've forgotten anything. You have got whatever information. We have probably achieved what we wanted to achieve in this or in these 2 videos that I have dropped. The first one where we got the API and we've understood how it works and understood the data behind it. Now, in this tutorial, we have rendered that data the way we want to on the web page. Hope this was very helpful. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next video.